Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Cecilia, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for today's Battery and Precious Metals presentations. Our next live presentation comes from Pacific Ridge Exploration. Before I introduce our speaker, please note, submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. All of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Blaine Monahan, President and CEO of Pacific Ridge Exploration, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol PEXZF and on the TSXV under the symbol PEX. Welcome, Blaine.
Thanks, Cecilia. Thanks for having me on. Love this conference. Quick snapshot of Pacific Ridge Exploration. We would be more characterized as a batteries metals company right now. We are focused on copper gold porphyry projects in BC. So it's an interesting project or projects we're focused on. These porphyries, they have both the battery metals component, copper, and also gold. So it's a good combination, and it's a sort of project that's very much of interest to a lot of different senior mining companies out there right now. Forward-looking statements, I will be making many, so please take that as your official warning. So why Pacific Ridge? Pacific Ridge is focused on copper gold porphyry projects in BC. The thesis is kind of stated at the bottom. We've assembled a portfolio of attractive copper gold porphyry projects in BC, a tier 1 jurisdiction. And it's a sort of project in the sort of jurisdiction that's getting and receiving a lot more attention. I would say in the past decade, there hasn't been a lot of interest in these porphyry projects in BC, but with the copper thesis, with the electrification of society and the forecasted demand, plus increased political, social, environmental risk in South America, we're seeing a lot more interest. And we're seeing that there's the acquisitions taking place, like Newmont with GT Gold, joint ventures like Freeport for the Joy, or Boliden for Duke, or ourselves with Antofagasta with RDP, and strategic investments like Teck with Kodiak Copper and BHP with Brixton. So we're seeing a lot more interest, a lot more activity with the senior miners looking for and investing in these projects in British Columbia. Now, when we think about the sort of portfolio of projects we've acquired here at Pacific Ridge, Clayule is our flagship. We acquired this project in January 2020 from Centerra. We've completed 2 drill programs there and are returning fantastic drill results. And last year, our partner, Antofagasta, one of the world's largest copper miners, completed a drill program at RDP. And that drill hole there was one of the best drill holes RDP has ever returned, and was one of the better intercepts out of BC last year. So we had a very, very busy year last year. It was one of the busiest years in this company's history, and I expect 2023 to be even busier. We'll be getting back for a similar size program at Clayule, about a 7,000 meter diamond drill program at Clayule this year. We're still waiting to hear about what sort of size program Antofagasta is willing to fund at RDP, but I suspect it will include more drilling. And we're also looking to launch an inaugural drill program at Chuchi, which is another one of our copper gold porphyry projects in north central BC. And all of our exploration is fully funded. So we're in great shape. We have some very attractive projects that are very much in demand. They're returning great results, and our exploration program for this year is fully funded. Management and board, I'm not going to go into great detail myself. I have more of a capital markets background. I have over 20 years experience, and I've worked with a lot of companies that have had a lot of success. To date, I've worked with 5 companies that have been subject to M&A. One of the more recent ones was Camplatz. And I've also worked for a number of companies that were a part of the TSX Venture 50. So all of my experience is with exploration companies. I know what it's like to go from exploration discovery to takeout. And that's exactly what our goal here is with Pacific Ridge. We're trying to outline a resource that's going to be big enough and potentially economic to attract the attention of a senior miner and have them make an offer to shareholders. We have a very strong technical team that's headed up by Jerry Carlson, the executive chair, and is comprised of Danette Schwab and Paul Jago. And we have an independent board. So from a corporate governance perspective, also quite good. It's a 5-person board, myself, Jerry, and 3 independents, Bruce, Gary, and Borden Putnam. One of our secret sauces is a strong technical committee. So our management team comes up with the exploration plans. We present it to the technical committee, which is comprised of independent experts from a number of different fields. So it gives me a lot of confidence that after a plan has been dissected and queried by this technical committee, it's been well thought out. All I really need to do at that point in time is raise the capital required for the technical team to execute on the plan. And that's worked out very well so far. Share structure, quite good. Retail about 52%, funds 42%. Our largest shareholders are Crescat out of the States, owns about 13% on an issued basis. Delphi, a German fund, owns about 7% on an issued basis. Then there's a number of other funds in Canada, in the US, and Europe. So a total of about 42%, management about 6%. Right now, we're trading at about 24 cents, which is close to our 52-week low, and our 52-week high is 51. And that gives us a market cap today of about 24 million. Trading volume is quite good. We are pretty liquid. We do spend a lot of time trying to build our market, and I think that helps explain why we have such strong funded institutional ownership, not only because we have an attractive portfolio of projects and are returning very good exploration results, but we do trade, and that is important for funds and institutions. They don't necessarily want to buy a company that's a liquid. We do have one analyst covering us right now, M Partners. They have a target price of 65 cents, which is in excess of 100% return from today's share price levels. So where are we? We're in the Quesnel terrain. This extends from northern BC all the way to the southern border. It's where most of BC's copper mines are located. We're at the northern end, and we're just south of the past-producing Chemist mine. Clyoul and RDP are about 50 kilometers south of that. We benefit from that historic production. There is a road and power that pass within about 5 kilometers of Clyoul. So right now, Clyoul is helicopter supported, but it is only 5 kilometers off that road. And then we operate, we are the operator for RDP, and we support the RDP program from Clyoul. So it's a joint base at Clyoul, and that means we share a lot of synergies, which helps reduce our costs. Redton, Chuchi, and Onho are located to the south, and Onho is only about 15 kilometers away to the west from Mount Milligan, which is currently a producing porphyry mine. Just a little bit on the infrastructure. So we're looking west here. The Clyoul main zone, which is our focus, is at about 1,800 meters in elevation. You can see down in the valley, you see that little thin ribbon. It's kind of in the bottom right corner of that image. That's the Almanica mining road. There's adjacent power, and that goes north to Chemist. So we're just a short ways off that road. What we do right now, we move our heavy goods up along that Almanica mining road. We stage at Johansson Lake, and then we helicopter everything up into the Clyoul main zone. There's also an airstrip there, so we move our personnel via prop planes from a smaller community called Smithers. It's about an hour and a half flight to Johansson Lake, and then we just ferry everybody up into camp. So lots of reasons why we like Clyoul. I guess I should point out right now we have the option to acquire a 75% interest. We are effectively there. The most onerous part of that agreement when we signed it back in January 2020 was making $7 million in exploration expenditures. We've now spent 7.5. So there's two things that could happen here. One is that we would formalize a joint venture with Centerra, whereby they would fund 25% of ongoing exploration and development costs. Or we could seek to acquire that remaining 25%. And that's my preferred option. We are in talks with Centerra, and I would very much like to acquire that remaining 25%. It would give us a lot more optionality and flexibility moving forward. Lots of reasons why we like the project. It is similar to a lot of these other deposits and mines in BC. And although it had seen limited exploration when we acquired it, only 33 holes and 5,500 meters, so pretty shallow drilling. There were a few deep holes that got into the porphyry, and this porphyry potential was discovered pretty late. It was first discovered in 2006, that hole by Geoinformatics. They drilled 2 holes in that campaign. Then Teck had an option on in 2015. They drilled 4 more holes, and that was the best hole until we launched our inaugural drill program in 2021. A pretty small program, 1,500 meters and 3 holes, but all the holes returned significant widths and grades. These were the best results to date that we've seen from Clayul. And that set the stage for a much bigger drill program last year. We raised money for a 7,000 meter drill program. It was the largest ever drill program at Clayul. And again, we returned some great grades and widths. But the real goal of last year's program was to demonstrate that the Clayul main zone had size potential. We always felt the grades worked, and I do have a slide coming up that compares our grades to some of these other deposits and mines mentioned on the slide. So I felt the grades always worked. It was always a question of, can we demonstrate it has size potential? And we did that. We've now outlined something that measures approximately 600 meters by 350 meters to 600 meters vertical depth. That's getting to the sort of size that gets very, very interesting. And we'll keep at it this year. We'll look to further increase the size potential of Clayul. This is the slide I was referencing. So when we compare the higher grade intervals from some of the historic drilling and the drilling we've done to date, and we compare the copper values to the copper values that we see at some of those other similar deposits and mines, they compare quite favorably. But we have higher gold values. So overall, we do have a higher copper equivalent, a higher gold equivalent. So that's what's always given me the confidence that the grades in this sort of environment work. It's really just a question of size. And again, this slide demonstrates, well, what sort of size do you think this project would need to be? And I think at a minimum, 250 million tons. I would not be interested in publishing a resource that was smaller than that. Obviously, the bigger the better, but that I think is the bare minimum that we'd be looking to outline at Clayul Main Zone. It's just a plan view, and we're showing some of the limited drilling here. As I mentioned, most of the historical drilling was shallow. So we're showing most of the holes here that got into the porphyry. So the lightest shaded colors are the historical holes from Geoinformatics and Teck. Then the mid-range color, the peachy colors, the 2021 drill holes, and the red are the holes we drilled last year. So we drilled 12 holes, and the results far exceeded expectations. I mean, we were trying to demonstrate it has size potential. We did that. And the 2 most important holes that demonstrated that would be hole 46 and hole 49. Hole 46 was drilled to the north that goes across the Valley Fault. And that was a really important hole because historically, past operators felt that Valley Fault constrained mineralization to the north. Hole 46 shows that is not the case, and it opens up a whole new dimension. Hole 49, which was drilled in the Clayul East Wedge, was again a very big step out. It was a 300-meter step out from the closest collar. And again, we intersected good lengths and grades of copper gold mineralization. So it's getting bigger. We see the potential for this to get much bigger. And I'll show you that slide right here. It does appear that the MVI or simply magnetics is closely correlated to mineralization. And if we look at this MVI footprint, it's about 38 hectares in size. And we've only tested about 5.5 hectares, or only 14.5%. So right now we've outlined an area of about 600 by 350 to 600 meters in depth. This demonstrates to us that there's a lot more potential for that size to continue to grow. And again, that's what we'll be focused on in 2023 this year. But of course, the Clayul main zone is only one target, and this is not uncommon. Porphyries do tend to occur in clusters. So the Clayul main zone is just one target area that occurs along the 6-kilometer long mineralized trend. Historically, it's what's seen the most amount of work. It's what we've been focused on, but there are a number of other targets. Some have seen some limited testing, some have not been tested at all. So in addition to the 7,000 meter drill program last year, we also completed some IP over some of these other targets like Ginger, which is just about 2 kilometers to the northwest from the Clio main zone, and Parish Hill and Back Ridge, which are again about 2 kilometers to the southeast. We will look to test these targets next year. So if we're thinking about a 7,000 meter program at Clio main zone, we'll probably split that up between 45 to 5,000 meters at Clio main zone, and about 2,000 to 2,500 meters testing both Ginger and Parish Hill Back Ridge. And that's really important. I think absolutely Clio main zone has the potential to host a big deposit, but it may not be, the other targets potentially could be as good, if not better, or maybe at minimum add some additional tonnage to that. So you don't know until you test them. And my case in point there, or my case study for that, would be GT Gold with Saddle North, which was recently acquired by Newmont. Originally, GT Gold was focused on an area called Saddle South, and later they shifted their focus and tested a new target called Saddle North. And that's what resulted in that close to 1 billion ton resource. So it's very important not to put your blinders on. Just because we're having great success with Clio main zone doesn't mean we should neglect some of these other targets, which could be, in theory, even better. So again, just a high-level summary of Clio. We do have exploration agreements in place with local First Nations, which is very important. It's in the Quesnel terrain is prolific. It's similar in style to a lot of these other BC porphyry deposits and mines. It has returned some very long widths and good grades of copper gold mineralization. We have outlined something that is getting quite large, and we think there's excellent potential for it to continue to get bigger. And we are planning our 2023 exploration program right now, which is fully funded. Now, RDP. We acquired the option for RDP in 2021. We optioned it last year to Antofagasta. And one of the reasons we did that, I would have said early last year, we didn't necessarily have the capability, the resources to launch 2 drill programs at the same time. We're in a different situation this year. We now have the resources, both human and capital, to do that. But at the time, I would say we were really just focused on Clio. We very much wanted to drill RDP, but we lacked the resources to do it. Antofagasta, like so many of these other seniors, was on the hunt for these sort of projects in BC. We entered into a deal with them whereby they can earn a 75% interest by spending $10 million and delivering a PEA over 8 years. And we were the operator, and they funded it. We launched the first drill program there since 2011. It was 1,800 meters and 6 holes. And the 5th hole from the day zone returned a fantastic intercept, the best hole ever returned from RDP and one of the better holes out of BC last year. So we're currently in the planning stages for the 2023 program at RDP right now. I would certainly expect, based on the results from last year, that Antofagasta will be funding additional drilling, but we are still waiting to hear and to see exactly what that funding and how much drilling might be in store for this year. Chuchi. Again, we acquired this project from Centerra. We acquired this last year. We're permitting this project right now. I do very much like Chuchi. In some ways, it's far more advanced than Clio. It has seen a lot more drilling. But again, like Clio, most of the drilling was shallow. But you do have a pretty big footprint already outlined. So the goal of this year's campaign will be looking to test some new targets that we identified in a ZTEM survey last year, and also looking to go a little bit deeper. So I think Chuchi has great potential for new discovery. It already has a pretty big footprint. The goal is to see if we can find longer intervals and higher grade mineralization. As I said, we are permitting this project right now, and I expect that we should be launching our inaugural drill program there sometime this June or July. And I anticipate right now that drill program will be comprised of about 1,500 meters to 2,000 meters in drilling. Onho. Onho is very interesting. I mean, I love its proximity to Mount Milligan. It's only about 15 kilometers to the west. We do own it 100%. Like Chuchi, we did complete a ZTEM survey there last year. We did identify some new targets. At some point in time, Onho will be drilled. It's just not a high priority for us right now because we do own it 100%, meaning that there aren't any exploration expenditures that we have to make. So we can kind of sit on this one for a little while we continue to advance Clayul and Chuchi, and while Antofagasta funds drilling at RDP. Redton is, again, interesting just because of its proximity to Quanica, Northwest Copper's Quanica. It's literally just several kilometers away from that deposit, which Northwest Copper is delivering some pretty good results from. Again, we have the option to acquire 75% interest. This was a package deal with Clayul. So when I talked about that $7 million in exploration expenditures, that also included exploration expenditures at Redton. So again, we are at the stage now that we could enter into that or formalize that joint venture with Centerra for both Clayul and Redton. So why Pacific Ridge? I think we absolutely have the right projects at the right time. Since we acquired the initial option for Clayul and Redton in January 2020, we've been aggressively moving the company forward. When I came on in 2021, we were a 5-cent stock. Today we trade around 25 cents. We had a 1.5 million market cap. Today it's about 25 million. We've strengthened the management team. We've strengthened the board. We acquired a number of other attractive copper gold porphyry projects in BC. We've partnered with one of the world's largest copper miners. So I think we're in great shape. And our exploration this year is fully funded. So we're really looking forward to it. We're in the planning stages right now, but we'll have more news about exactly what we plan to do this year over the coming months, and should be mobilizing into the project sometime mid-June, early July. And at that point now, I will answer some questions. Bear with me one moment. Here we go here. First question. Where in your life cycle do you expect to start attracting acquisition interest? If we keep having success, pretty soon. I mean, our goal, again, is to outline something big enough that could result in M&A. We are outlining something now that's approaching that stage. We do talk to the seniors often. That's ultimately what we're trying to affect here. So in addition to talking to investors or potential investors, we also talk to the senior mining companies. We are trying to attract either strategic investment or at least just make them aware of what we are doing, in the hopes that if we are successful, that will result in an offer by one of them. Next question. What is the history of Clayul, and when was prior drilling conducted? Yeah, it was first drilled in 1974. As I mentioned, when we acquired this option in January 2020, it had seen 33 holes in 5,500 meters. So not a lot of drilling. Most of it was shallow, except for those 6 holes that got into the porphyry. And the first hole that got into the porphyry was in 2006, and then Teck drilling 4 more in 2015. So with the drilling we completed just last year, we more than doubled the amount of historic drilling. So we've now completed 8,500 meters of drilling, Pacific Ridge, versus 5,500 meters of drilling from 1974 up until when we launched our inaugural drill program in 2021. Next question. What are your takeaways from your 2022 Clayul drill program? The biggest takeaway for us is that we have demonstrated that it has size potential. The MVI is obviously very, very interesting. We'll see how that guides our exploration moving forward, but we think Clayul Main Zone has excellent potential to continue growing. We already think it's getting to an interesting size. There's a lot more work that has to get done, But we're very hopeful that we can continue growing it. And obviously, we're really excited to test some of these other targets that, again, could be as good, if not better, than the Clio main zone. But no, we're excited to test those. And of course, we're excited to get drilling Chuchi, and of course for Antofagasta to fund continued drilling at RDP. Now, I'm not seeing any more questions. I'll give it 5 more seconds. Doesn't look like it. Anyways, a pleasure. Thanks very much. If anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I work for shareholders. I'm always interested in speaking to investors or potential investors, so please don't hesitate to reach out.